and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2550. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. I'm founder Mark Green, and I've handed the keys to this car over to Ginger Baker Rust, who's a lifelong enthusiast. Ginger's here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, and buckle up and get ready for a fun ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today, we are coming to you from the beautiful town of Gardner, Kansas, with one of the best-known auctioneers in the business and a really wonderful friend of mine, whose name is Ron Stricker. Hello, Ron, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have it in gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
The clutch is released, Ginger. Let's fire it up.
All right, sounds good. Ron, please share something about yourself that most people may not know.
Well, Ginger, most of everybody knows that I'm an auctioneer, but back when I was 18 months old, I didn't drink a bottle of Drano, but I accidentally picked up a piece of Drano that had been clogged in our sink, and my dad came home to help my mom unclog it. He took it out and dumped it outside, and unfortunately, somehow I followed him out there. When he turned to see where I was at, I picked up a piece of that Drano and stuck it in my mouth.
Oh, my gosh.
It burnt my esophagus shut. So I couldn't eat or drink or anything for several months and almost over 2 years. Finally, my parents had me in and out of KU Medical Center here in Kansas City. And a doctor said, look, we have one thing that we think we can try. It's an experimental, something that's only been done on a dog, but we want to try it on your son. My mom said, go for it. Oh, wow. They dilated my throat. I was the very first human in KU Medical Center here in Kansas City to have my throat dilated, and it worked.
Wow!
It stretched my throat out enough where I could eat hamburger, and so I had a hamburger from the Smacks Drive-In, which is right across the street from the. Of course, they tried other things as well, but I can remember my mom and dad so excited that they fed me a Smacks hamburger, and then to have all that happen as a young kid and to put my parents through that, and now I'm an auctioneer, so. Pretty blessed to have my throat.
Oh my gosh. I was going to say, whose voice is everything in the auction business.
Yes. Yeah. And then last year, of all things, I got tonsil. I had to have my tonsils removed at 61 years old. And that was really painful. They say it's painful as a child, but it's even more painful as an adult. It was so excruciating. I truly didn't think I was going to be able to do what I do now. And,
oh my gosh.
And I got my voice back. They assured me that it was going to work, but the pain was just beyond anything I could ever imagine.
Well, my understanding is that if you have your tonsils out after the age of 15, that it's actually really, really serious and can be extraordinarily dangerous and complicated.
I'm telling you, it's like any, I'm pretty tough, I think, but that's one thing that it got me. It got me down. I was down for almost a month.
I've known you for a long time. We've run in the motorsports circles for quite a few years now, and you're a tough cowboy. So.
No, thank you.
I didn't know about that at all.
Enough about my illnesses. Let's move forward.
Well, let me introduce you a little bit more to our audience here. Ron Stricker is one of the most well-known auctioneers in the country with a very successful family business located in Gardner, Kansas. Stricker was a former pit crew member in NASCAR from 2002 to 2010 for Penske Racing with drivers Dave Blaney, Brendan Gaughan, Travis Kvapil, and Kurt Busch. He has dedicated a lifetime to his love of motorsports, cars, and airplanes. He flies his Cessna Centurion 210 to auctions and to his favorite motorsports events across the country. Ron is the owner of Ron Stricker Auctions, whom with his parents, Jerry and Carol, has been in the auction business for over 55 years and seen it all from heirlooms to astonishing barn finds. He has a daughter, Sydney, and a son, Blaze. Let's take a little deeper dive in your history or down your throat.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit more about your journey into the motorsports world and how did all get started?
Well, in 1998, February of 1998, I got introduced to the Coleman company, lamps, lanterns, camping gear, all this kind of stuff. And I was asked if I was interested in going to look at a big warehouse full of coolers in Wichita, Kansas, which is about 2 hours from here. And so I said, sure. So I went and I was introduced to the company, and that was in February 98. And so from February 98 till July of 2015, I dealt directly with the Coleman company, where I bought and sold semi-loads of returns, buybacks, closeouts, whatever it might be. I never told them no on anything. I took it all.
Yeah.
So that was in 98. So they took me to my first NASCAR race in Michigan, of all places.
Oh, wow.
And we bartered a Coleman tent and a few other items to get a room in Michigan close to the race. Was it Johnson? Is it Johnson City?
I think it's Jackson.
Jackson.
Yes,
We were in
Jackson, Michigan.
Jackson, Michigan. We had to. We bartered all this stuff, and when we got a room, and so me and a gentleman at the time, his name was Jerry Kuntz. I called him the Godfather of Coleman. He introduced me to the NASCAR world at Michigan. So that was my first race I ever got to go to. And I got to go down into the pits a little bit and into the infield around in the camping area. But that was my only time I ever got introduced to at that point. And then in 2001, when they opened the track up in Kansas, Coleman set up on the hill and turn one and had a big spread of all their product and everything. And they asked me, they said, "Hey, we have to deliver a generator down into the pits. Would you like to go with us?" I said, "Heck yeah, I want to go." So I go down in there, and we're taking it to Kevin Harvick's team. And right next to Kevin Harvick's team was the Jasper team, which was at that time driven by Dave Blaney. So I got taken down into the pits, deliver this generator to Kevin Harvick, and a gentleman who was driving the hauler, which is Bill Lewis, which they called him Stump. Yeah. He said, "Hey, how do I get one of them generators?" And I handed him my card, and he started calling me, and I started selling generators and coolers and heaters, road trip grills, you name it.
Yeah.
And that was in 2001. In 2002, they came back and they said, "Hey, would you like to come to the race?" And I said, "Sure." So they actually got me a pit pass for me and my dad. And we go down into the pits, and I'm meeting his wife, Cindy. And I've been around enough sports cars and stuff that I know where to stand and where to stay out of their way. But I'm right in the middle of the garage, and they're letting me get close. And so Cindy says, "Hey, what are you doing on Sunday?" I said, "Well, I hope I'm coming to the race." She goes, "Well, what size shirt do you wear?" I said, "Extra large." And she goes, "Okay." So I'm thinking they're going to put me in a cruise shirt and they're going to have me cooking bacon because she's the cook. Yeah. And so I show up there, and she goes, "There's going to be a guy by the name of Moose come get you and put this on." She hands me a fire suit. So I start pulling fuel. She has me meet Moose, who is the gas man. And Moose takes me to the gas pumps and said, "This is where you come to. As soon as I empty them, you come right here. It's a race to get back because there's 42 other teams at the time going to try to beat you to get fuel. And we got to get the fuel and get it back and get it weighed and everything." So that was my first job. So I did that in Kansas in 2002. And then the same year I went to Phoenix and did it at the race in Phoenix. And then it just grew from there. So they moved up into Penske's organization and from Jasper into the Penske Garage Mahal. What a beautiful place that is.
Oh, yes.
So Brendan Gaughan came on. And so I was with Brendan Gaughan with Kodak. And then Travis Kvapil, same thing. And then I ended up being with Kurt Busch. So as they progressed, I progressed. They just brought me with them. And Don Miller at the time was the president at Penske. And he loved me. Don and I got along really, really good. And Roger, of course, the captain. What else can you say about the man? I'll tell you a real quick story about Roger. After I was out and I was still hanging around, I wasn't on the team anymore, but I was still getting to come around to the races and stuff. I met him again in Arizona, and I walked up to him and I said, "Mr. Penske, my name's Ron Stricker." He says, "I know exactly who you are. You don't have to tell me your name." I'm like, whoa. That was awesome for him to still remember me and to call me by my name and know who I was, because I stood in the holler with him, and he's just as common as could be. He loved hot dogs. We stood there and eat hot dogs. That was one of the neatest things about, being around Rogers. Is so common, but yet what a great man.
Now I have to ask you, did you have competition with the captain at Martinsville? With the Martinsville hot dogs?
Yeah, Martinsville. I did get to go to Martinsville, and I did eat the hot dogs, but I don't think I had to worry about him. He was probably off somewhere else. But yeah, the Martinsville hot dogs for sure. Yeah. Don Miller, what a great man he was to me. And I'll tell you this and another Roger story. I bought my father a 2007 Dodge Charger for his birthday, a Penske full-blown cup car. and give it to my father for his birthday.
Oh my gosh.
So I took my dad to the garage, to the Penske Racing, and I walked him in and I showed him some cars, and he kept telling me, hey, let's get one of them bodies back there in the back where they did the pit crew. He says, I think we can put one of those on your race car. And I'm like, Dad, okay, sure, I'll talk to Roger about it. So anyway, I ended up getting to buy, and my dad had no idea. I'd already bought it. He was leaning up against the car that I bought, and I bought him a full-blown 2007 Cup car and gave it to him for his 66th birthday.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to sign my life away, saying if I ever had to sell it again, they had first right of refusal, and everything worked out. But I took it down and I give it to him. I surprised him with it, and then later on, when they had the race here in Kansas, Kurt and all the team came, and I had it sitting downtown Kansas City in front of the Capitol Grill with Penske flags around it and Miller Lite, and had it on red carpet. And Kurt came and autographed it for my dad, and Kyle Petty was there. I mean, we had a great time. I mean, we had 50 plus people at the Capitol Grill for my dad's birthday party. So it was pretty neat.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
So some fun times.
Yeah. You said you had another Roger story.
Oh, that was part of it. Roger.
That was part of it.
Roger. Well, we had to get the approval from Roger to let me to buy the car.
Yeah.
And Roger agreed. Because not everybody can just buy a full-blown Cup car and have the Penske engine come out of there. And so he agreed, and he understood what it was for, and he knew my dad was an enthusiast, and Don knew my dad as well. I brought my dad there. It's another thing. Don knew my dad was a big car enthusiast. He threw me the keys to his own personal garage and said, take your dad down to my building and let him see all my stuff.
Oh, boy.
And Ryan had stuff in there at the time, too. So it's pretty neat to let my dad get to see all that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, yeah. And when you say Ryan, you're referring to Ryan Newman.
Ryan Newman.
I mean, Don Miller's the one that actually kind of brought Ryan Newman up.
Yes.
Franks.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think I sent you a picture. One of the neatest times of being on the pit crew, and I wish I remember what year it was. I'm sorry I don't. But Kurt and Ryan were on the pole in North Carolina at Charlotte, and so we have our whole team picture with all of us. Both teams on the start finish line there. So anyway,
that's amazing. There's so many stories of how people got into NASCAR, and what's crazy is in 2001 and of course 2002, that's when it was really hitting its pinnacle.
Yes.
And for you to just be picked up, I mean, you're a big guy. Right. I mean, you're really tall. You're a big guy. And it's funny that they just put a uniform on you and said, here, do this, because it sounds like an easy job. And it is not.
I went from being the gas man to the tire runner. I ran the tires to the pit stops, and that was even more grueling. Probably the most grueling track of all of them is Las Vegas. Oh my God, it seems like a mile across that place to get the tires back to the. So that was probably one of the most grueling jobs that I had.
Yeah. But explain to listeners like exactly what that is, because most people don't understand when you run fuel and when you run tires, they don't understand what that means, because most people think that the teams buy their tires and all this and then they just throw them out.
Right.
Oh no, they don't understand that they're actually leased from Goodyear.
So back to the fuel stop. So again, there's now 40 teams. So as soon as the pit stop's over, you got to take those fuel cans. You got to go get in line and try to beat the other people, fuel carriers, to whatever, toters, whatever we were, pulling the cans of fuel. We'd go and I mean, it's like almost like a dead race. You couldn't run, but I used to carry a whistle just to keep, because there's so many at the time. It's not quite as crowded as it was back then, but I'd have a whistle to blow people out of my way so that I could come through, because I knew NASCAR people had whistles. So I kept a whistle with me sometimes so I could get through the crowd to get over to the fuel station and get my fuel and get back. And then the same thing with the tires, as soon as the pit stop was over, you got 3 or 4 tires and they're hot and you're trying to get them back and get that part done so you can get back in case there was another pit stop, because I was the right side. I grabbed the right rear tire off the car. And I just heard Dale Jr. talk about this on his podcast, because when he was doing this crew chiefing this last weekend, he had to catch the right front. And so he told Amy, he said, if I miss, I'm in trouble. Yeah. And that's one thing that I knew. I would never want to not miss or make sure I grab the right rear, because, if it missed and it went bouncing back across the the way, we're in trouble. And I never did. Thank God I never did it.
Well, it's not only a big penalty, but it's also a huge safety issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So luckily that never happened. I was always right on my game. So it worked out.
That's great. That is absolutely great. Well, Ron, throughout your life, you've talked a little bit about it already and some inspirations, but throughout your life, I know that there are people who have been great inspirations. Would you share with us a key mentor who helped you be successful, and who's been the most influential person in your life?
Well, I have to give credit to my dad, but my mom and dad, I'll just put them both in they started our auction company in 1970. My dad bought the building thinking that we was going to rent it to a company that here in town that he worked for. My father worked for a company called Kramer Products. Been in business over 100 years. They just recently sold and moved out of town just like within the last 3 years. But my father worked there for 17 and a half years. And in that short time before he bought a building and thinking that they were going to rent the building from us. And they offered some rent, but it wasn't even enough to pay the taxes and the payment. So he said, I can't do it. And so the guys at the break room, this was March of 70, he was kind of getting harassed by the guys at work during a break. And he said, what are you going to do now? And he says, I'm going to start an auction. And he literally got up from the break room table, walked over to the phone book, grabbed the phone book, looked up the next auction. This was, I think, February of 70, looked up the next auction school date, called him up and called him and asked for the date. They told him it would be in March. So he took his vacation from work in March of 70. And in April of 70, April 5th of 1970, we started the auction.
Wow.
And we've never looked back. And there's been people that back then that said they wouldn't make it 6 months or a year. And 55 years later, we're still going strong.
Yeah.
So, and I'm very blessed to have my dad with me every day. And I say this with the most respect. He's here telling me what I'm doing wrong every day. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And my mom, she's still here. She comes in on Tuesdays after auctions and still helps with the books. Their inspiration and their dedication to keep the auction going over all these years and for me to get to pick it up. And I honestly didn't want anything to do with the auction business. Being my father worked at Kramer Products, it's a athletic supply place where they made all the liniments and that kind of stuff. I thought I could go be an athletic trainer.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to be. And now athletic trainers are almost like, the schooling is almost as much like a doctor, but not quite as much. But it's still, you're doing almost all the same things as that. But school wasn't for me. I was a great trainer. I was top trainer everywhere I went. Physically could do all the stuff, but schoolwork, I was the worst. So I had an instructor that knew our family pretty well. And he said, I think you better go be an auctioneer. So what got me in the business, I went to auctioneer school in 1984, and I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. So you went to auctioneer school in 84.
Yep.
Then you did all this stuff, and then you did the Coleman and was involved with Coleman, which was a huge brand. And then took a break from auctioneering. I mean, were you still auctioneering?
No, I did it all.
You did it all, even when you were
auctioneering.
working in NASCAR.
I still auctioneering. I would have my jobs done. So if when it would come time to go to the race, I didn't go to every race, but I went to a lot of them. And the main year that I went to the most was probably in 2006 or 7. I went to 17 races in 1 year. And I never got paid. This was all on my own dime. Everything I did was on my own dime.
Wow.
Everything.
Which actually wasn't uncommon back then, though. Really?
No.
For the race teams. It really wasn't. Yeah.
No. But I sold lots of stuff, Coleman stuff, to all the different teams. I became well known as the cooler guy, and so everybody knew when they came to Kansas that they would come to my store here in Gardner, and I would sell them all kinds of Coleman stuff. There was at least 2 trips that I made to Penske's and went to the actual race shop. I would pull in and I would drop my trailer door down, and all 700 employees would come in and empty me out.
Oh,
I mean, that would never happen today.
No.
But back in the day, it happened. I did it a lot.
Yeah.
So, it was a lot of work, and I don't want to say I didn't love it, because I did. I loved it all. In 2015, the Coleman company sold off to Rubbermaid, and that kind of did away with my Coleman connection. But it built my life as an auctioneer even more. I mean, I love what I do. I mean, I'm very passionate about it. But that part of my life and being in the auction business and trying to run a Coleman business and go to all the NASCAR races, I mean, I was so blessed to get to do it all. I had great parents that let me do what I wanted to do. My kids were young enough. It was just a perfect timing.
Yeah.
And so NASCAR, being on the team was a dream come true that I never dreamed I'd ever get to be a part of any of that.
Yeah.
And then to get to go to be on Penske's team and to meet all the people that I met throughout the years and all the officials and shook all the right hands. And as you well know now, I can probably go to any race anywhere, anytime if I really want to. It's just having the time to get to do it. But it's just an honor to know that when I walk in the garage, there's people know me. So.
Yeah. And I've talked about this a lot, that, the racing family, I want to circle back just for a second about talking about you volunteering. It's so interesting now when you think about what you've said versus how, NASCAR and racing is now. And when you look back at that time, NASCAR was basically now like your local dirt and asphalt races, and to where your teams are generally volunteers and they work on the car and everybody,
yes,
and you pull people from here and there and hope to God you've got enough people for the weekend. And, and it's so crazy because 2001 was the first, a TV year, right, for NASCAR.
Right.
And for them to still be doing that, and people don't realize this, but because it was so huge, when it hit TV, but people don't realize that even during that era, it was still people like yourself that was just volunteering and just, hey, we need you to do this.
Right. Just
to be able to build the sport and just to be able to race.
Right. I was just so honored that they trusted me to be around it and to see everything that we, involved through. And, from the car that I bought my dad in 2006, and to even see the car from in 2001 and to 2006, I'd have some of the pit crew guys come over, and even Kurt, he's been here to my place. He stayed with me on a trip passing through and to go and see the car at that time and then see it today, the evolution of all the cars and the technology and how they've changed over the years. It's just it was an amazing thing. But yeah, just to be asked to get to do what I did and then to trust me to come along and to let me go and stay with the team and fly with the team and do all the different things I did. It was a dream come true. I'll tell you another quick story about Kurt. I got a phone call from his publicist, and they were having a deal in Vegas for all the Kurt Busch fans. And so they asked me to come out there and to do a benefit auction. Basically, I did a little auction for all the fans, and they got to bid on some stuff from Kurt, and he put me up in a hotel, and that was on the weekend right before Phoenix. And so as soon as we were done with the fan fest thing that we did for Kurt, he put me in his jet and flew me to Phoenix for the race. So that was a pretty big deal, for a young kid from Kansas to get to hang out with Kurt Busch and to fly in his private jet and do all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty neat.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the other point that I was going to make, too, that I've talked about a lot in trying to explain to people that aren't involved necessarily in racing or car collecting or in the automotive world like we are, that once you're in the racing family, unless you've done something to get yourself kicked out, to lose respect in the sport, it's always your family. It's always your brothers and your sisters. And I don't care how long you've been in it or how long you've been away from it. And I know I've seen you when you walk in the garage, everybody still, knows you and the guys and the people that work there. And it's just, and it is good. And, I haven't been traveling with them for a couple of years and it feels the same. And for me, it feels like I'm going home every time.
Absolutely. Yep. And I always dress the same and they all know me. And so I guarantee you, if I ever walked in there with a ball cap on, there would nobody know me.
I was going to say they would know you because of your cowboy boots and your cowboy hat. Yeah. And your blazer.
Yeah. My blazer. Yep. Yep. My black blazer. But that's in honor of Penske, the white and the black. Absolutely. That's in honor of Roger. I do that for Roger just to, and then I think I sent you a picture of me and Walt Zarnigi. He's got my cowboy hat on and I got his ball cap on. So we took a picture like that here. I think that was in Kansas here not too long ago. So, yeah.
I'll post that picture on your notes page.
Okay.
Well, we talked a little bit about, a huge challenge, when you're 18 months old, but can you share with us another difficult challenge or failure or obstacle that you've faced, whether in personal life or business, and tell us how you overcame that situation and what did you learn?
In 2015, I think I just mentioned a little bit ago that the Coleman company sold off to Rubbermaid. And when they did that, I was used to going there every Wednesday. And I mean, for 18 years, I drove back and forth to Wichita, bringing home loads and loading semis in 2010, we shipped out 350 some semi-loads from August to December from the Coleman company's coolers going out. And so in 2015, everything was going big time and I was doing really well. And then all of a sudden in 2015, they just pulled the rug right out from under my feet. And they shut. I mean, I'm literally pulled up to the gate, the guard shack with the trailer, thinking I'm going to go in and get my load like normal. And the guard said, "Hey, I can't let you in." I said, "What?" I said, "What's going on?" They said, "Well, they didn't call you yet?" I said, "No." And they said, "Well, they're doing away with your program." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me. Why didn't they call me and tell me before I drove 2.5 hours?" But anyway, so that was a rough time for me. I just built a huge house. I had a 13,000 square foot house right on the end of the runway out here. And I'd had several people from the race team. They all know my house. And so it's just a house, it was a house in 30 acres, but I built it. It was I called it my nursing home. And I really, at the time, it was a big endeavor, a big financial blow to have them pull me out of that program and not get to buy anymore. And so I had to take a step back, and I did. I sold the house, but it's kind of our place to let other people come and enjoy it. I built it mainly for other people to come see how we could have fun and enjoy life. And so anyway, that happened, and then things started getting really tight. And I tried to keep a hold of it as long as I could, and I just became more established with the auction side of my life. And now I'm so busy. I'm so blessed. That's what turned me around, is just having the determination to not quit. You can ask anybody that knows me. I don't quit. I am not going to back down from the challenge, and I make it work. And if I can't figure it out, I've got plenty of people I can call to help me figure out what I need to do next to make it work. And so I moved forward, and I built the auction business. And it's in 2015, my father, not only did the Coleman company in July pull the rug out from under me, but my father made it even a little more challenging to me. We moved my auction company, or our family auction company, from his building, which is directly across the street from where I had my Coleman building. And so that was taking it from a 5,000 square foot building to a 10,000 square foot building. And I fought it hard because that was our legacy. That's where we, had all the auctions and had all the memories. And for me to move it over here, I just didn't want to do it. Didn't feel right. But now that I've done it, and now that I did it, and he pushed me to do it, I'm so glad that we did. And it's just changed our whole auction perspective, how we set things up and make it work here.
Oh, that's an amazing story. That's an amazing story. I mean, I've known you for a long time, and I'm learning things I didn't know. Yeah. I also know, though, you're one of those guys, you never quit. You absolutely never quit, and you always find a way. And you're one of those people I know that I can call you up and I can say, "Hey, I need some advice here, or needing your wonderful guidance in this business." And so I appreciate that friendship. Let's talk a little bit about a bucket list, because, man, you have done a lot in your life. Can you share with us what you'd still like to accomplish in this next chapter?
Well, let's back up just a second. So one of the things that I got to do, because I'm involved with the Coleman company, with all the years and experience, and them finding out that I'm an auctioneer, there's actually a International Coleman Collectors Club, and they meet every year somewhere. And then I started going to these in 2003, and I had to interview for it because I don't even know who they used for auctioneers back then, but they had me come and audition, and I've been doing it ever since. So now I travel all around the United States and do the auction for the International Coleman Collectors Club. I just came back from Ohio just this Sunday. Unfortunately, through the years, these collectors pass away, or they just get out of the notion for collecting Coleman. And so I started doing these big auctions, and I've done some really big collections from some really amazing people. And one of the items that I had in 2019 drew people all the way here from Japan. I had 4 families sitting in my auction right here from Gardner, Kansas, from Japan to bid on this certain lamp. And the lamp ended up bringing $17,000. 1901 Coleman arc lamp. Well, the gentleman that bought it begged me to go to Japan and do an auction for him. So finally I agreed. I tell this story. I've been Catholic my whole life, and I don't eat fish. I owned a camping store for 18 years, and I don't camp. But I ended up going to Japan and camping and eating fish. so I went to I got to take my kids. I got to take my kids, and we went to Osaka, Japan, and then they drove us to Mount Fuji. And so we stayed at the base of Mount Fuji. They got me an RV to stay in. It's about as big as my desk here. It wasn't very big, but it's better than sleeping out on the ground. And so I got to do an auction for the Japanese Coleman collectors at the base of Mount Fuji. I can guarantee you I'm the only auctioneer in the world that's ever stood at the base of Mount Fuji and done an auction for anyone. But I did it for the Japanese. Then I went back in 2023 to do it again. And unfortunately, they had a big tsunami and it washed everything out. And I still met with everybody, but they actually took the time to come meet me. And there's a big museum there, and most of the stuff that's in that museum came from me. So they did a TV interview with me there on that. And the Japanese people have been a big inspiration for me. So that's one of the things I want to do again is go back to Japan. But my main bucket list thing is I want to go to every race of every week for the whole season. I keep telling Kathy, that's what I want to do. I want to go to every race. I don't want to miss a race. I want to go to every single race every week. So that's probably the only thing on my bucket list that I'd ever want to do. And I know a lot of people think I'm crazy, especially the crew guys. I could probably take any one of their spots anytime, but after the grueling season that they have. And I know they love what they do, but it gets tiring. Yeah. Even when I did the 17 races, sometimes I'd leave on a Thursday. Sometimes I'd leave. If the race was in California, I could leave on a Sunday at 7 in the morning, get there at 7 in the morning because it's 2-hour difference and the flight was 2 hours, and then still make it back in time for the auction on Mondays.
Yeah. So. Well, and it's funny that you said that because before I got involved in NASCAR, that was actually my number one bucket list item.
Yeah.
Was that I wanted to go to every single NASCAR race in one season. And at that time, I had no idea that I was ever going to ever be involved in NASCAR, but that was number one on my bucket list. And I remember finishing my first year in NASCAR, and I got to check that off. And I've been every single racetrack, every track, and every race for several years in a row. And man, like you said, I've talked about it on the show before, the grind. People just don't understand the grind.
Yeah.
But man, besides that, the specialness, of it.
There's a few tracks I haven't got to go to. One of them is Talladega. I haven't been there.
My favorite.
Watkins Glen. I've never been there. When Kentucky was open, I didn't get to make it there. And Dover, Rockingham. At the time, there's only 4, but now there's several. But because my schedule just didn't allow it, and the auction was just falling into the wrong time, well, I don't want to say pay the bills, but anyway, to leave my dad hanging at the auction on a Monday night or not be back in time in case something happened, I just didn't want to chance it. Yeah. So anyway, but that's one of my main bucket lists. I want to get to go to every race and be a part,
Well, and you got to be excited a little bit to hear, they were opening Rockingham back up and Wilkesboro back up. And Talladega is one of my favorite races. It's my favorite super speedway race. Bristol's my favorite short track. And then you talked about Dover, the Monster Mile. That's a great track.
Right. The other one I forgot to mention was Darlington. I haven't been to Darlington either.
Darlington's my other one. The lady.
But my favorite track is Phoenix.
Oh, yeah. The mile, because it's fast. Yeah. People.
Yes. Yeah. And now that they've not so much reconfigured it, but changed the front stretch and the back stretch. I try to explain this to people. When you go and watch qualifying and get to stand right there next to the track and have them come by you so fast like they do and turn into turn one, I mean, I get chills just thinking about it right now. Yeah. That was and that's still my favorite track to go to is Phoenix. So.
Well, we're going to have to get you out here for Darlington and Rocky, my home state of North Carolina. Sure. They're right in my backyard. I'm 45 minutes, from them. So you definitely have to come. In fact, the Southern 500 is coming here just soon. So definitely at the end of August. So you might need to come. So let's talk a little bit about, you already talked about that special cup car, man. And I got to tell you from hearing that story, that it's rare. That's a rare thing to be able to get a cup car. But let's talk about a special vehicle in your life. Share a great memory or experience you had with that vehicle. And if it was already that one, that's great. But if you
I would say the airplane, our Cessna 210 that we've flown in. I've flown in that thing from here to Oceanside, California. It's taken me to a lot of NASCAR races, and it's taken me to a lot of towns where I've went and looked at big auctions and that kind of stuff. I'll tell you a quick story about the airplane. The gentleman came in my store here, and I wasn't here. I was actually on a trip to Coleman, bringing home a load, and he came here and he seen a propeller I had hanging in the store. And he asked the gal working here about the propeller, and she said, well, we're trying to find a pilot to fly us because we've got a lot of stuff going on in Wichita. So I ended up meeting him, and he tried his hardest to get me to buy time into the airplane, and I was afraid of it. Flying an airplane is a lot of money, but if you use it for the right tool, it can be a very good tool. And he taught me that. So I asked him, he kept trying to get me to buy 30 hours of time in a plane. And I said, there's no way I'm going to use 30 hours. So he finally let me buy 10. Well, that year I used the airplane 110 hours. And then I became a part owner in it. And then when things kind of crashed, and he bought me back out. But he said, this plane is just as much yours. You need to fly. You let me know. And he's at my beck and call. I mean, he's just been a great friend. And because he knows that I use the plane wisely. There's times that we used it for fun to go to a race or something. But,
right.
I had business there. I had people wanting coolers or whatever they might need from me. And so it was just always I just learned to use it as a great tool. And the Cessna 210 is such a workhorse. And it wasn't the best looking plane in the world, but it got us where we needed to go and could haul a big load. And I was very honored to get to still be a part of it. I still fly in it. So
yeah,
I'm not a pilot. People think I am, but I think I've told you this too. I always kid people, yeah, I'm a pilot. I pile furniture here and I pilot there, but I'm not an airplane pilot. So anyway.
I was going to say, I've seen you in that plane a lot. Yeah.
The plane is a great tool and has been a very good piece of machinery for me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it does. It makes it, especially in racing, it makes it so much faster. It makes it so much better to be able to get back and forth. And
right. We were at the race in St. Louis a couple years ago when Joey won, and that was the first race back there. We were on the pit box, and my daughter was there, and Nick and everybody, and we kept saying, oh, man, I kept thinking, man, we better go because all these planes are going to, we're at the same airport as all the other crew members and the racers and the drivers. So I thought, man, we better go. And then, of course, we leave, and Joey wins. We could have went to victory lane, but we're standing in the lobby watching the race on the TV, and here comes Steve O'Donnell and everybody and all the race, some of the other people that had crashed out or whatever, and they're all watching. And I told Nick, I said, man, Nick, we better go. Because we're in a little Cessna 210. They're going to start letting all these jets go ahead of us. So we got out of there in time. But that was a fun day to get to go there and see all that. And unfortunately, we didn't get to go in victory lane like we could have. But, it's just a fun day to be a part of that. As far as special cars, my dad's got an extensive car collection. And I've had it at the race. I took one of his cars to the racetrack. And it was the 43rd Superbird ever made. And Richard Petty came along and autographed it for him. And Joey took pictures with my dad with it. And so that's, his car collection. That's why I bought my dad the 2006 7 Dodge Charger that we put in his collection. And since then, I've sold the car, and I got permission from Roger. And it went to a Penske museum. And so it's in Evansville, Indiana, in a Penske museum. Yeah. So.
Oh. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this. If you were a car, little car psychology here. If you were a car, what would you be? And more importantly, why? Now, this isn't what you want to be, but instead how you perceive yourself manifested as a vehicle.
Well, it wouldn't be a car. It'd probably be a Dodge truck, it'd be a Ram 3500, because that's what I drive every day. And it's just a workhorse. It pulls. You don't even know a treader's behind you. I live in this thing. And so I got a 2024. I'm getting ready to trade for a 2026. I trade every 2 years. The Dodge Ram is probably, I don't eat, I don't sleep. I'm up all the time. And it's just like, it's a workhorse, and I feel like I'm a workhorse. So I say the Ram 3500.
I absolutely agree with you. I couldn't think of another vehicle that would be more appropriate for you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and you talked about your dad's car collection, and we're going to talk about the Ultimate Drive here in just a second. But you talked about your family and your dad's car collection. There's got to be some amazing special cars that you guys have seen through the auctions and barn finds and things. And
yeah,
can you share some of those?
Yeah, one of the things that we just had happen to us. This has been about 5 or 6 years ago. We were working on a farm, and we were cleaning it out, and we had this one door that just wouldn't open. And finally, we took the time and dug it out. And when we looked you could peek through there and see it. It was just a whole pile of nothing but aluminum cans. And finally, we got the door open and we realized underneath all those aluminum cans was a 1966 Chrysler.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So it was completely covered up. But so anyway, we ended up pulling that out. You talk about a barn find. This was a true barn find covered under all these aluminum cans. So that was a pretty neat deal to find that.
Oh, gosh.
And I've sold 57 Chevys. I had a big museum I just sold out here not too long ago that had a 58 Chevy, 57 Thunderbird, 66 Chevy that only had like 17,000 miles. But yeah, I had all kinds of neat signs and everything. It was a museum that I actually brought all the way back from Caney, Kansas, which is down by Oklahoma. And we brought it back here and reconstructed it, put it all back into my building and auctioned it off. So it was a pretty neat deal.
Well, that's cool. I was going to say in 55 years, you probably could spend 55 years telling me all the cars and barn finds that you've found. That is just an amazing collection.
Yeah, there's been some neat cars.
Yeah.
But I'm not really a car auctioneer, I'm more of a, I'm not going to say I haven't sold cars, and I have, and I've sold a lot of livestock because of 4-H deals, and I do all the 4-H auctions around here. But I always say my claim to fame is I've sold everything from $1,000 penny to a $100,000 clock. And I sold a $100,000 grandfather clock in 2004 for the convent up in Atchison, Kansas. And I had people there from all over the United States, and I had 4 big bidders, and it went to the clock ended up going to Germantown, Tennessee, to a Cadillac dealer. And he flew in that morning and he bought it. He wrote me a check, took a picture with me in the check and his wife, and flew back out that same day. So yeah, he paid $100,000 for a grandfather clock that was in the convent. It's about 11 foot tall, really unusual, pretty, it was appraised back way earlier than that for 50. And then we sold it in 2004 for 100,000. So
my goodness. Goodness. Well, talking about writing checks, let's talk about the Ultimate Drive. I am writing a blank check for the Ultimate Drive with no limitations. And again, I have fun with this question. If I could wave a magic wand and arrange for you to go on the Ultimate Drive, what vehicle would you be in and whom would it be with?
Well, you just brought up a story that I'm going to share. So one time I got to go to testing, and I got to ride on the plane with Ryan and Kurt and all the team, and we jump out of the car, out of the airplane, and I'm standing there. I don't know who I'm supposed to go with, and Kurt says, "Come on, come with me." And so we jump in the rental car, and we're not even out of the parking lot, and Kurt and Ryan are already, dodging each other and doing all kinds of stuff. And we get to the track. I think we went to Memphis. I'm pretty sure we went to Memphis. And we pull into the track, and Kurt and Ryan in the rental cars, they just start making laps. And Kurt's yelling at me to turn the traction control off, and they're bumping mirrors and everything. So that's probably one of the most ultimate drives I've ever got to go on.
Oh my God, that's a real life Days of Thunder.
And then a few years later after that, Kurt came to Kansas City to do another deal with a big sponsor. And they brought him just a plain Jane Dodge Charger to give rides in. Well, I come pulling up, and at that time I had a 2007 Dodge myself, fully loaded. It was a 138 of 1,000, had a SRT8 engine in it, Hemi. And Kurt says, "We're not using this car. We're going to use Ron's." So he gave everybody rides in my car, and including me. I get to go for a ride in as well. And of course, he had the tires kind of wore off. So he told me when I go back home maybe I should make some ride handers to get the tires wear back down. But so those are some of my ultimate rides that I got to go on, I'd say, with Kurt Busch. But if I was to ever go back in time and get to go on a ride, I'd probably want to go with my grandpa in our old Dodge truck. So we got an old 50 Dodge truck that's sitting over that my dad's brought back, and we dug it out of the weed. One of these days we keep talking, we're going to get it running. But if I was to ever get to go on an ultimate ride, that would be with my grandfather in that truck.
Oh, what a story. What an ultimate story. Yeah. I love that. What are some of the ways that you've helped others or given back? Now, this could be in your life or career field. And I know you're a very, very giving guy. So I'm curious to hear this answer.
So being in the auction business, of course, we get called to do benefit auctions quite often. And so in about 98, 99, I got hooked up with my good buddies that own the Western store. Their name's George and David Nigro. And George's father owned a horse auction back in the day. And he sent George to auctioneer school when he was 12 because he didn't want to pay anybody else to do the auctioneering. So George went to auctioneer school when he was 12. He's 70-something now. But we have done over 100 plus auctions every year, all for charity, all for free. We don't charge one dime. You name the charity, I've probably done it. Mainly a lot of the Catholic charities, but I mean, Arthritis Foundation, the Heart Association, Furball, which is for dogs and cats. I mean, you name it, we've done it. We've raised millions and millions of dollars all for charity. And, it's our way of giving back. We don't charge anything for it. And just we're blessed with our businesses. And so that's something that we do every weekend. Right now we've had a little break, but it's getting ready to start back up again. So I think once we start hitting August, we'll have about almost at least 3 nights a week, if not 4, all the way through till end of November. So, and in December even. And that's something that I always wanted to do. I know all these NASCAR guys have all these charities, and I've always told Ryan Newman I can auctioneer as good as he can drive a race car. I've always wanted to do a charity for a NASCAR driver or team, and it's it's just logistically me living here and having it all happen back in Mooresville. It just kind of never worked out. But hopefully one of these days I get to do it.
I was going to say I'm betting that would be part of your bucket list too, that you'll be able to check off at some point.
I'm really pushing on the NASCAR Foundation. Right now they have Rick Allen, which Rick Allen's father started the National Auctioneer Association, which is in Overland Park here. His grandfather helped start that, but he does the auctioneering for the NASCAR Foundation. But I've tried to get him to let me come help, and I've been talking to him and stuff, and Tammy and everybody. And so hopefully it'll work out one of these days where I get to come be a part of it. I'm
betting it will. You talked a little bit about Don Miller earlier, and Don Miller has a great book.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you, can you share with us a great book that you've read, an article or something that you've watched that you believe others can learn from?
Man, I wish I could tell you I had time.
I was going to say, I know you don't have a lot of time.
No, I wish I probably could throw one in the truck and listen to it while I'm driving, but I honestly don't read much or get to watch much TV. So yeah. I'm usually on the road driving or making deals or hauling junk or whatever it might be. So I really don't have any books or anything that I really read.
Well,
I read my prayers. I read my prayers every morning.
I was going to say, I know you read your prayers every morning because you're part of our little network. People don't know there's a motor racing outreach in NASCAR and a lot of the racing series. And you send still, and I get it every morning, you send a group text to a lot of us in the racing community and with prayers and scriptures every single morning. And I look forward
I send over 100 people every day. And if I don't get it done during the day, I do it at night.
Yeah.
So somehow, some way I get it out there.
I know you do. And it's always an inspiration for me.
Oh, thank you.
Can you give our listeners a final parting words of wisdom and advice about life or business? And do you have a favorite quote or mantra that has meaning to you?
One of my favorite things I like to say is, no God, no peace, or no God, no peace. And I honestly don't know who wrote it or who said it in the original, but that's one of my favorite things I like to say. As far as wisdom, or things to inspirational, I look at my father. My father's 84 years old. He doesn't quit. He's still here every day helping me. He's been running the skid steer all afternoon just because he can't sit still. And, just trusting God to give you all the inspiration and knowing that he's going to bring you through every situation, no matter what it is or how tough it gets. He's helped me through everything. And I've had some times here when I never knew how I was going to pay the employees. And next thing you know, it happens. And I'm like, wow, so I just give all my faith and glory to God and keep, I'm not trying to be a Bible Belt pusher or anything like that. I just try to live my life and show other people that hard work and dedication will get you where you should be. And I was going to mention one of my favorite and one of my best buddies that's still with Penske, and I have many. If you look at Brian Wilson, which is Austin's crew chief, Austin Cindric, he started the same day I did in 2001, 2002. He was a shot guy for Penske, and now he's a crew chief for one of the best race teams in the whole world, with Roger Penske and being a part of that. And, I'm just so inspired by him, as his dedication and never quitting and pushing and working hard and getting through everything. And to go through all the stuff that he had to go through to get to where he's at today is another, just a great inspiration. And I was with Eric Bailey, who's Brian Wilson's car chief. His father just passed away, and I was with him here in Kansas City for that. And, all these guys that mean so much to me. Darren Russell, he's now retired, but, I have so many friends from NASCAR on the Penske team. There's many, many others. I could probably name a million of them, but, and then to be able to call them my friends and have them call me when they need me, it's just been a true blessing. Like I say, when I see Walt Zarnaghi, a lot of people don't know Walt like they do Roger, but Roger and Walt are hand in hand in Penske Racing, and Walt will stop in his tracks and come talk to me. And that is just so inspiring and so means so much to me that they know my dedication to them, and they give their time to me to want to take the time out and say hi to me and ask me about my kids and that kind of stuff. So
that's really special. It's really special.
Yeah.
Finally, tell us the best way that our listeners can learn more about you and your business, your website, social media, LinkedIn, best means of contact that you would like to provide publicly for people to get to know your business a little better.
My main website is ronstrickersauction.com. I just hired a young lady from Nebraska who is my social media gal, and she has taken my views from 19,000 to over 200,000 in just a month. So I'm on all those LinkedIn and TikTok and Instagram, and it's not stuff that I just didn't have all the proper ways to get it out there like she does. I mean, she's just been so amazing for me, but I'm on all those websites and social media finds. And so we're working our way to get our own podcast. Eventually we want to do that, but timing and everything is just, as you well know, to stop and to have editors and to have all that kind of stuff that we need to make it work right. But ronstrickersauction.com is the main place to find me for sure.
Listeners, you can find the links to everything that we've talked about here today at carsyow.com on the Ron Stricker link on the notes page. And Ron, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time and sharing your experience with our listeners. And like I said, I've known you for a long time, and I learned a lot of things today. And I love sharing the stories. The stories for me are the best part about this. And thank you so much. And you're, like I said, you've been a really special friend to me. And I just want to thank you so much for your time for being on here with me.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be the 2,550th show on your show. So thank you for having me. And it's an honor to get to be a part of it. Thank you.
Well, on that note, until we talk again, I will see you down the road.
Thank you so much for joining us here today on Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find today's guest show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up. It's an ebook filled with gorgeous photos of fuel filler fun, including quotes from our inspiring automotive enthusiasts. While you're on the website, sign up for weekly blogs and a whole lot more. Download your copy today, and Ginger will see you next time here on Cars Yeah.